Hey friends, today we'll be making a rainbow spiral. First, I washed this shirt in some textile detergent to move any sizing or chemicals that was in it, and then I soaked it in a soda ash solution and then spun dry it in my washer. The shirt dried a little bit, so it is kind of wrinkly, but it'll be fine. It will still turn out great. So I slowly start twisting the hemostat in the middle, and as I'm twisting, I'm trying to keep all of those creases nice and crisp as I swirl it around. I also try to keep the height of the creases about the same. It never turns out perfect, but as long as they're close, it will help a lot in getting that nice spiral design. I do take my time with the swirl just because the creases can kind of move around really easily. I know some folks can do this really fast, but I prefer to go slow and steady. This video is also sped up 4 times faster than the actual video speed, so it is going pretty quick on this video, but do take your time on this step. I also have a rubber band, a large rubber band ready to go, so that once I've got this as tightly tucked as I can get it, then I can go in and put on the rubber band. The rubber band part is always really awkward, and my main goal is to basically just get the rubber band on first, remove the hemostat, and then I can clean up all those edges. I do try to keep those edges folded on the crease where they were, so it's just a matter of kind of going in and making sure everything is tucked in nice and tight. Now I put some jars in the bottom of a tub with a cooling rack, and I put some silicone cake molds around the edge, which are super easy to find on Amazon. And I like to pre-measure out the length of the silicone cake mold just to make sure that it will fit. I like to do that before I add any dye. So I'm using Procion dye, which is a fiber reactive powder dye, and I'm just going to place these into triangles on top of the swirl, and I'm also just kind of gently patting it down to make sure that it's pretty evenly spread and that there aren't any holes or anything in the dye particles. And as you can see, I'm trying to get them as close together next to each other as possible. You don't have to do that. It does make a slightly different pattern, but since I'm doing rainbow, I really want the colors to kind of mix into each other just so that the colors blend really nicely together. And I am adding a little bit of a color called dragon fruit, which I love putting in my rainbows. It's sort of like a purpley pink. It's not quite a magenta, but it goes really nice with the rainbow. And then I put my cake mold on, and the purpose of this is it will hold the ice directly on top of the dye to ensure that as the ice melts, it will pull the dye through the shirt all the way. I like to gently place the ice cubes on top of the Procion dye for the first ice layer. The ice cubes can pick up the dye particles and kind of move it around. And because I'm doing a swirl, I want to make sure that the colors stay in the place that I put them. Now, because this is a YouTube, I am using a hairdryer in order to make this melt faster. And then after it melts, I'm going to let it sit for about 24 hours. You can let it sit a little bit less than that, but I really like to make sure that the fibers really, really pull in those dye particles. And I did add a second layer of ice and melt it because there was a lot of dye left. And then I flip it over just to make sure that the dye went all the way through. Sometimes I do have to do another layer of dye on the other side. And then I just reuse plastic bags and I'll just let it go sit for 24 hours. Then I rinse the shirt out in cold water to remove any excess dye particles that are still in the shirt. And I unwrap it here very carefully. The excess dye is mostly washed out at this point, and the colors will appear darker here because the fabric is wet. And when the fabric is wet, the material and the colors appear darker because of that. So after this, I will go wash it in my washing machine with a textile detergent to remove any loose dye. And here is the reveal. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can join me for more tie-dye adventures.